ignored, or any of their, the things that they need to survive, like those things being ignored. Like, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to say something. I'll be the voice for the voiceless if I have to. And so for me, the events that I went through as a child, battling depression as a teenager, battling anxiety for most of my life, and those were the things that helped me to identify the fact that I know what this feels like. I've journeyed through these things, and now I want to learn other ways, more professional ways, to help others get through those exact same things that I went through. So for me, when you ask that question, how did I know? It automatically comes up for me that I knew at 8, 9, 10, 11 years old that I needed to be in the helping profession. Like I said, I didn't know what therapy was. I didn't know what clinical social work was at the time. But after doing some research and studying and just learning from other people, I found out what that was. So that's what really got me into the
field. Man, I think that's a really powerful and an interesting dynamic, because the way you processed, internalized it, and said, hey, look, I'm going to be a voice for the voiceless, or you know what, I'm going to stand in a place that I'm going to be someone that I didn't have.
Yeah.
You can internalize it, and it can get you to two different destinations. I'm sure there's another person who has similar life situations, and they went a whole nother path. In fact, they became a person that maybe didn't want to emulate the things that were done to them, but it was like that times two for them, because they didn't know how to process. They didn't want to go save someone else. They wanted to express and let out the frustrations and the angers and the confusions that they experienced as a kid in their confusion, as adults. So I think that's pretty powerful, that and really the grace of God for you to be able to actually become I feel like this is what I want to do, be a voice, and then have those opportunities. And like, what did your opportunity look like when it's like, okay, you found out, say in high school, what is it going to take when you go to school and study what you study when it comes to like the education side of it? Because of course you can't do this and not have certain, licenses and things like that. So talk a little bit about, like, I guess, like your actual role, like today, what you do, and then, what's needed, what's necessary to do what you do.
Yeah. So one of the first things that jumped in my mind when you asked that question, in terms of like what's needed, the first thing that's needed is compassion. The compassion for people. You can't be a therapist and be judgmental. You can't be a therapist and put yourself on this pedestal. One of the first things I tell my clients is, like, I'm human too. I'm human too. Some of the things that you face with in life, I probably have faced some of those issues as well. And so you need to be able to be present for the person that's sitting in front of you and not have your own agenda. Again, even as a Christian man, there's some things that people share with me that may not line up with my own beliefs. But when you're in session with me, it's not about me. It's not about me whatsoever. It's not about my beliefs and my wants and my needs. It's about your needs, your wants, your beliefs, your culture. And I need, and it's time, again, when I have a person sitting in front of me, it's about creating an atmosphere for them to grow, not an atmosphere for me to preach to somebody, for me to tell somebody what they need to do. I need to create an atmosphere for that person to feel comfortable, to feel safe, that they can be vulnerable, because 9 times out of 10, they've never been vulnerable with anybody else, or if they have, that vulnerability has been violated. Wow. So I need to be able to create a space, a safe space for people to open up, sometimes about some of the hardest things that they've ever had to deal with, sometimes about some things that they've never told anyone else. And I have to be able to, someone needs to be able to share, hey, I'm thinking about doing X, Y, and Z, and Melvin's face need to be, okay, tell me more about that. and not, oh my goodness, are you serious? So
Right.
yeah, so a therapist, again, non-judgmental. You don't already have your own agendas. And
Mm.
again, you're not trying to, preach the gospel to someone in their session. You're trying to, again, allow them to be them, authentically them.
Wow.
And
Yeah, that's good.
yeah. So in terms of, I mean, of course you have to, in order to get to this level, you have to go to school and get a master's degree in either like clinical psychology, clinical social work, which is what I have, counseling, and something of that nature in order to do this work. But it goes further than having a degree, to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's perfect because I was going to ask you, like, okay, say someone's like, okay, I found out I got the degrees, I got the certifications, the licenses that are necessary, but is that it? And you just answered it. You said, there are intangibles that you need that you can't get a certificate for.
Yeah,
You have to
absolutely.
have some other things that you can't hold up a piece of paper for. That's big.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You have to, this goes beyond race. This goes beyond economic stance. It goes beyond, um, all your preconceived notions about a particular body of people.
Mm.
Like you have to be able to put those things aside and, and work with the human being that you have in front of you. And there's so many attributes of a
Mm.
therapist that goes beyond you getting your degree.
There's some things that you like had to learn along the way. Like, okay, yeah, I definitely didn't learn this in school, or hey, I didn't get this from my degree.
Practice. I have a private practice, and so
Okay.
I haven't found one program that teaches you the nuts and bolts of owning your own private practice. This is something that you learn once you get into the field, and you
Mm.
really have to connect with another business owner in order to get the nuts and bolts and insurance billing and what that means and how insurances impact certain demographics of people and all that kind of stuff. So you really get to learn the systems that impact the people who are coming to see you, and you get
Wow.
to and honestly, if you choose to, you get a chance to be an advocate for some people, or you realize how, like a government issued insurances will, pay very, not well at all, where, commercial insurances pay very well, and you get to see how like some other practitioners won't accept, like the Medicaids and the government issued insurances and stuff, which limits people to who they can actually go see. So you get to
Wow.
learn all that kind of stuff. Once again, you don't learn that in school. You learn that afterwards. So, but even, other things that come to mind would be, you know, the first time I ever lost a client, like they passed away or killed themselves. I've had people who passed away through the natural causes. I've had one person, young man, actually kill himself. That
Mm.
happened 2 years ago. I was not prepared for that. There was nothing that you could have taught me in an educational program that would have prepared me for that.
E-
Especially
eh,
having been
Go
working
ahead.
with him. I've been working with him for quite a few years.
Wow. And even from a legal standpoint, I know I've had a good friend who let us know, even as an all men's community, that if someone divulges certain type of information to you based off the state you're in, based off of the laws, like the obligation you have to respond and how you respond and how it's important for everyday people to know if they have a friend and they hear something that it's imminent and they're going to make be a threat to themselves, like I guess share a little bit about what that is like to where you are I don't know if it's a non-disclosure agreement or whatever it is that by your practice you cannot necessarily divulge certain things. But at what point is it okay to have to like go to authorities and like to whatever you can at least talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah. So safety is of the utmost importance with anyone. So when you come to therapy and counseling, one of the first things your therapist should tell you um, is they should tell you about the limits of confidentiality, which
Mm.
basically means everything that we talk about is totally confidential, stays in these four walls. But there are moments where we have limits to this confidentiality. And that's
Mm.
if you come in and if you say that you are going to kill yourself, if you're going to kill someone else, or like if you've harmed a child, or or something of that nature. So those are moments where I would have to have a conversation with somebody else. But I tell people that right from the very beginning, they know that, they understand that. Um, and they understand I really do a job on just letting people know that there are limits to this confidentiality. Outside of those things, outside of safety, you can come in here and tell me anything else, and again, it just stays between us. But there's another thing called duty to warn, which basically means that, if, again, someone comes in and say, hey, I'm going to kill such and such, and this is how I'm going to do it, and, and this is my plan and all that kind of stuff, I have a duty to warn. Not only, warn like law enforcement, but to warn that person who, if I have that person's information, or if I can get that person's information, like I have a duty to warn them and to let them know, like, this is what was said, and we need to make sure that we protect your safety.
Right. And even yours too, like, right. Because you're a person who's found safety, but I haven't heard any stories or anything, but I'm sure there's been therapists out there who they've had to legally obligated to do what they did. And now maybe someone has, ought against them, or some type of, so the type of safety even you have to exercise for yourself, right? Just being in a safe place is important.
Oh, yeah. You learn in this field that you're working with people due to their mental health. So in the mental health field, you are going to get people who say, I don't want to be here, or I don't want this person to be here, so I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or I've been thinking. Now, there's a difference between someone saying, I have a plan on doing this, and this is how I'm going to do it, versus the person that says, I just don't want this person around here no more, or I don't want to be around here no more.
Right. Or I felt like XYZ.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the clinician, it's the therapist's job to figure out the seriousness behind it, but also to figure out if they have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, and if you're not really serious about it, like I can do some crisis planning with you, but I don't have to call anybody. I don't have to warn anybody, So we have to be a clinician in that role, where we are trying to investigate and figure out how serious is this situation, and if this person has a plan or not.
Man, I know that's a lot to balance, but I know in the typical journey of counseling through over the years, I'm sure you dealt with your ups and your downs and all that. But tell me about what's some of the things that you enjoy the most about. You talked about earlier being a voice for those who can't be a voice, but what are some things that you really enjoy about counseling? Like, say, I don't know if there's a time or a story, but anyway, tell me some things you enjoy most about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few things that I really enjoy about the work that I do. I get to see people heal. I don't know what it is about it, but it's like when people have those aha moments, or when people say, I do a lot of almost in the way of like a lawyer would do. I would ask you a question that I already know the answer to, but I'm waiting for you to say it, because a couple of things may have happened. You may have never said what you are about to say out of your own mouth. You may have thought about it, but it's something different happens when you begin to speak out of your mouth certain things that either that you need to do, that you should have done, that you can do differently, those types of things. And it actually creates, words can create. And I think that I tend to ask questions like that. I count it an honor and a privilege to work with someone during some of the worst moments of their life. They've chosen to come see me.
Right.
And I don't take that for granted. And so, like, I'm honored. And I feel like I get the, it's an honor and a privilege to do that. So that in and of itself feels amazing.
And even your personality, if you think about where a person's personality is a strength, as far as being someone who counsels people, like, how does being able to have a sense of humor for moments, like, how does that even come into play in your role?
You need a sense of humor in this role. You have to have a sense of humor in this role. I wish you could meet all the therapists on my team. Like, we're silly, we're goofy, we clown. If there's no clients in this building, like, we're in here laughing, we're eating together. Like, we really create community here. But
That's good.
humor and laughter is so important, and
Mm.
being able to, like, I'm not gonna sit with someone and, be this professional and, like, hey, how you doing? My name's Melvin. What's going on? So, like, I'm gonna relax. I need to be relaxed. I need to be calm. I need to be relatable to people. Now, will there be some people who come in who's really gonna want this? This professional that sits back and, and take notes like this, and
Man, I'm telling you, because the movies make it seem like y'all be in there just like.
Right, exactly.
So how did that make you feel?
Right, exactly.
like movies be, man, I tell you.
Yeah. So now I can't lie to you. I do have a couple people come to mind that will come in, lay across my couch. But you know what I do? I lay across my other couch. I'm like, hey, you mind if I lay across this couch? We both looking up at the ceiling, and we have a conversation. And
Wow.
like I have a young person that I do that with, and I have an older person that I do that with, and like we get through our whole session that way. Again, it's about creating an atmosphere where people can grow. It's not about my shirt and my tie. It's not about me properly sitting up, and but it's, again, creating a safe place for people to feel, to know and feel that they can, have an outlet. So, with kids, I'm on the
Amazing.
floor. We playing games, we playing checkers and Uno and all this other stuff, but we're talking while we're doing those things. So it's yeah. So
Man, that's amazing, man. That's creative too. Like, he's like, hey, mind if I sit on the couch too? Setting up how that community, that nonverbal body language, it does a lot for connecting with somebody.
Yeah, and you need to know the demographics of people not only the demographics of people, but you need to know the person that's sitting in front of you. You need to begin to learn that person. And again, I can't say for everyone that comes in, I would have felt comfortable, or know that they would have felt comfortable with me laying across the couch too.
Right.
Certain people that, like I'll test the waters here and there, and just trying to figure them out, trying to see, like, if however, again, I always go back to however I can make this a comfortable place for you to get your healing.
When you said that, it made me think of a parent who has multiple kids who cannot have the same approach for every child. The first thing I thought about that. So it's like, what would you say is if a therapist runs the risk of trying to give the same type of approaches or same type of methods, like having a cookie cutter method with all of their clients? Like, and I don't mean like principles, because I know certain principles and methods you can use uniformly, but what do you run the risk of if you try to treat another client like another?
You're going to hurt them. You're going to hurt your clients. You are going to offend your clients. You make your clients feel ignored. You are not going to have a relationship with your clients the way that you need to, in order to get them to the next level. So there is no way that you can be the same person, use the exact same techniques with each and every person that you deal with. We are not cookie cutter people. Therefore, our answers are not going to be cookie cutter. So and that's actually one of the first things in my first session, my intake session, that I tell people is again, like I said, we're not cookie cutter people. Therefore, our answers are not going to be cookie cutter. So what worked for the last person who came in with the same challenges that you come in with today, what worked for them may not work for you. So it's important for me as a therapist to, again, learn your needs, your wants, your desires, your culture, your beliefs, all that kind of stuff.
Man.
And the other thing that I tell people all the time is, Melvin doesn't have your answers. But together, as I learn your wants, your needs, your beliefs, your culture, together we can work as a team to help you to find the correct answers for you.
Wow.
I had to, as a new clinician, I had to figure out, how can I keep my own anxiety down? Because I'm feeling like these people need me. I need to be able to give them their answers and this, that, and the other. And no, I don't live their life. I don't walk in their shoes. I don't know what it feels like to be an Asian woman living in America, but she might be my client, so I need to let them know right off the bat, like, I don't have your answers, but I have an education. I have life experiences, I have other resources, and the greatest tool that I have is I have you. And together, you and I can figure out what this path is going to look like for you.
Man, that is so encouraging and empowering, because I feel like I'm getting counseled now. I was like, come on. He said, together we will find. I'm like, yes, we will. Wait a minute. I ain't on the couch. I ain't on the couch.
Right.
Let me get back in. Wow. Like, and that's huge, man. It sounds like, someone who clearly, like you said in the beginning, you got to have compassion and you got to care. Someone who does not care will not take the time to relate and take the time to just walk with somebody. And it sounds to me, because I used to think a therapist was more like, kind of like a coach, but it sounds someone like, there's two different type of personal trainers, one who like stand there and be like, you got this. And then another type of personal trainer that is working out with you and they're running with you. And hey, we got 10 more reps. Let's do this. And they're pushing you, but they're doing it with you. That sounds like the type of practice that you have, where you're walking with the client and they're not left up to themselves.
Absolutely. And a lot of people get coaching and counseling mixed up. Yeah. Although I do walk in the area of a coach, and I have coaching moments, I'm not a coach. I'm a clinical therapist who help people with their mental health challenges.
Right. And that's huge, man. I mean, even speaking of challenges, what kind of challenges are in your field, and kind of shifting gears here, like how would you say technology either helps with some of those challenges or just impacts your field? I guess it's a two-parter. So I guess, what are some challenges personally for you that you face in your practice, and then how does technology impact your field?
Some challenges that I have is and it's not so much challenges that I have, it's more so challenges that the people that we work with have, which causes our job to be that much harder. So the first couple of things that come to mind for me is people are hurting all over the world. And the stigma of mental health, the stigma of therapy, the stigma of, having to talk with someone else about your challenges, it has really hurt and damaged communities in terms of reaching out and getting the healing that they need. I would definitely say even the more in the Black community, Black and brown, in the Black and brown community. So, although I do have quite a few Black and brown clients, I will say that it's taken them a long time to request services. I get people who say, I've been dealing with this for 15 years. I've been dealing with this for 20 years. I've been dealing with, I'm 54 and I've had this problem since I was 7, So it's taken them a long time to seek services, but I don't want to sound like I'm putting all the blame on them, because we also need to have a conversation on the other side of that, which is access to services also. And so access to services looks a bit challenging too for Black and brown people.
Wow.
So
that's big.
It doesn't look the same always for everyone. So I mean, again, we could talk forever about that one. But
that's a really good point, though. When you said, I never really thought about that too much, about one major challenge from a client standpoint for Black and brown individuals is access. So where access, when it comes to exposure, access to information, and even resources, when you talked about a moment ago, you learned about the insurances and the financing this, because this is not free. Like, this is a service, a professional service, be it any other professional service, like a doctor you go see, or you could talk to your CPA, you're going to get an invoice. So, how does, those challenges from a standpoint of exposure and even the stigmas, I'm sure it can be somewhat frustrating sometimes when you can clearly see a demographic that could really use the service, but one may not be able to afford or have access to it, and two, just not know much about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, and I mean, there's things that, a lot of people don't want to talk about, in terms of just like our, the history that Black and brown people have had in terms of like the medical community, and just the trust of the medical
trust,
community. And we know that goes way back, it was the Tuskegee, I'll have to.
It's all good. I know what you're talking about. I think I read up on it.
But what was happening was, I do believe that they thought that they were they had syphilis. They were giving them things, and it ended up being syphilis. And so, and we were used for research.
Yeah,
So,
we were lab rats, literally.
absolutely, absolutely. So, that's a long-standing history, and I even think about my dad, going to go see anybody. I mean, he was on his deathbed, to be honest with you, and just like not wanting certain medication. What's this? And and looking at me and my siblings and stuff, and just like not trusting the medical community. So black and brown communities, they do experience a different level of disadvantage in terms of access to healthcare, but the stigma associated to mental health.
Right.
Because again, in the black and brown community, we tend to be very religious, and it's like, give it to God kind of thing, and pray about
that tension.
it. Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's navigating that tension right now of, hey man, I have a faith, I believe in Jesus, I believe in God, I have a relationship with God, but at the same time, I've been kind of indirectly taught that if I don't give everything to Him or only go to Him, then if I'm choosing other resources that clearly He's provided, I'm not believing, or I don't have faith. Like, what do you say to that person in that tension of clearly are needing or wanting services or help, but they may not know where to start because they're navigating that tension?
Yeah. So number one, I respect everyone's religious beliefs, no matter what they are and how they come across, and even if they're different from mine.
Right.
I would encourage that person. If you were to seek a therapist, and that in some way that means that you are, you don't have enough faith,
going against,
or,
right.
Or you're gonna, shame the church or shame your family, or whatever that looks like, then that's something that person has to deal with on a personal level and a spiritual level. But I would tell them to continue to seek God, and if God is pointing you in the direction of going to a professional, or maybe they're having a hard time even hearing from God. I don't know, but at the end of the day, yes, a professional would be the best option, but at the same time, do you have a brother? Do you have a sister? Do you have an aunt, uncle? Is there someone else who you can talk to? Because
and trust,
I will tell you this. There are some people who come and sit on my couch and I cannot get a word out. They come in and they just dump, but on their way out, they'll say, "Oh my goodness, Melvin, this has been the greatest session I've ever had in my life. And you're awesome and you're amazing." And I've barely said anything. So that tells me when people have a safe and comfortable space where they're able to not feel judged and they can be vulnerable and just let this stuff out, then that is therapeutic also. That can be therapeutic also. So that's why I say, if you absolutely cannot get to a professional, or if you're just wrestling with that, I would definitely encourage an individual to try to reach out to someone else, hopefully that you trust and that could give you some feedback that will be beneficial for you. But there is nothing like talking to someone who is not biased in your situation. They don't already have a preconceived notion about what your challenges are and what they look like, what you need to do. So again, here's the therapist telling people, go to therapy.
Right. It sounds like a process. It definitely sounds like something that someone has to just kind of walk with and continue to see God with. And I thought of the joke, or I think it's not so much a joke, but it's a little story people tell about it's kind of a joke where it's like, okay, the man that was on a raft on a raft in the ocean, and a boat came by and said, "Hey, I'll save you." Like, "Don't worry, God will save me." And then an helicopter came by. It's like, "Don't worry, God will save me." Then a ship came by. "Don't worry, God will save me." He drowned, went to heaven, and he's like, "God, what happened? Why didn't you save me?" So I seen your boat, I seen your helicopter, and I seen your ship. And so it's like, if you don't look at God and show that He's not a genie, one, He does apply His love practically and works through people. And if He's put people in place to be a resource, and you dismiss those resources for the sake of being devoted to Him, that conversation may go just like that joke if you're not able to be at a place where you're pulling on those resources.
Outside of His Son, one of the greatest gifts God has ever given us was people.
Wow.
And so,
seriously.
yeah. And so when we can't talk to people, relate to people, lean on people, that puts us at a disadvantage, you know. And I think, you know, it's funny to me, you know, if you have a heart problem, you go to a cardiologist.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a foot problem, you go to, you know, podiatrist. If you got a teeth problem, you go to, you know, you go to the dentist, right?
Yeah.
You know, but if you have a mental health problem, people, oh, you don't have faith. You don't have enough faith, you know? So it's like, really, you know, let's really walk this thing out. Let's really talk this thing out. No, you got a professional for every other area in your life that you'll go to.
Nail tech, CPA,
yes.
want to work on their car, I'll take
yes.
that shit. Barber,
yes.
I mean.
Yes. But when it comes to mental health, you know, oh, you don't have and honestly, it stems from a place of ignorance. You know, I've sat in a church service before, and the pastor that, you know, that I was visiting, you know, he, you know, you call yourself around here talking to these therapists and this, that, and the other, and you need to just lean on God.
It's like, man, look, so like what? So many people think it's either or. I always have this quote, even my wife knows, I always say, it's this and that. It's not either or, it's this and that. You don't have to choose a side, but you can equally take advantage of the resources God's placed in front of you.
Absolutely. You can have tacos and chicken. Like, it's no big deal.
Exactly, right.
No big deal.
Right, when I go to Benihana, I'm like, okay, let me get shrimp and chicken, though. Let me just get both. Exactly. I'll have to choose sides. Man, like, and when you talked about access earlier, just share a little bit about, you know, with the current climate, with, you know, people, you know, social distancing, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of, you know, mental health has even not only been in awareness the last couple of years, but it's gone up even more due to people being in isolation, dealing with people and all kinds of like domestic abuse. But talk about people's access now due to technology. How does this current climate make it easier or better for people to take advantage of services?
Yeah, one of the greatest things that COVID-19 has done for the mental health field is to let everyone know and see about, let everyone know even the more about telehealth. So we have telehealth programs right now.
For someone who doesn't know what telehealth is, what is telehealth? And you can continue, of course.
So telehealth is providing services for someone using a platform like what we're using right now. You know, I can see you, you can see me. We're talking, we're communicating. You know, being that I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't need for you to say, hey, you know, I don't need to say, hey, open your mouth, let me look in here.
I see your gums, no cavities.
Nothing. Yeah, I don't need to see any of that kind of stuff. Right. You know? So this platform works great for in the world of telehealth or mental health services. So we can have telehealth services, and I can give you a Zoom link. You know, we can jump on Zoom. There's a couple other platforms. There's many other platforms that
WebEx, Skype.
Yep, all that kind of stuff. We can jump on those platforms as long as they're HIPAA compliant. You know, we can jump on those platforms and we can have services. I can provide services to clients. But here's an amazing part right here. So for the older population who had a hard time getting out anyway, you can just pop open your phone and we can have services. You're sitting on your lazy boy, and I'm sitting here in my office, or I'm sitting in my home office, who knows? Or maybe I'm sitting in my lazy boy, I don't know. You know, for the people who had transportation issues, we have telehealth services. So I'm licensed here in the state of Michigan. Legally, I'm not supposed to perform services outside of Michigan. But what tends to happen is when you didn't have telehealth services, I'm seeing people, you know, in the remote community, right?
Right.
Now you know, I live in Saginaw, Michigan, but someone in Grand Rapids, Michigan, who might need some help or some services, they can, you know, call us up and we can start having services now. So you don't have to worry about that commute. So my reach has extended into the whole state of Michigan.
Anywhere.
Every
mile.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I can pretty much reach anyone in Michigan, and obviously, if I choose to get licensed in other states, then I can do that too, and it'll cover the whole state. You know, so so we can definitely work through some things. It is different though. It's very different because I am a, you know, like, hey, let's talk in person kind of an individual myself. And even when we moved to telehealth as a state, and the different mandates came down, I stopped seeing my own therapist, and I could have moved to telehealth, but I was like, I love sitting on your couch. I love, that face to face, so maybe we can just hold up until we're able to get back together. But then it got to a point, I'm like, it's been a little bit too long, let's go ahead and get these telehealth sessions. I'm providing telehealth sessions for other people. So I think I can handle it.
Yeah. Because Melvin said, I'm trying to pull up, I'm trying to be in there like, on week. I'm just, right. You just,
exactly.
He said, I'm trying to come through with the mask. But man, that's amazing. I think more people, with resources available, online through technology, telehealth being a resource as well. I definitely think getting the word out that, this is available to people now. And people have more time now on their hands. A lot of people are working from home. A lot of people are able to be flexible in their daily schedule. So it's almost no excuse. It's almost no excuse to pull on this type of resource. So
absolutely. And at least here in Michigan, if you have like a state issued insurance, a Medicaid insurance or something like that, your mental health coverage is free. It's free to you. There's no copay, no deductible or anything, so you literally call us up, give us your Medicaid information. We check and make sure that you're active in the system. And as long as you're active, again, you can sit on your couch and talk to somebody, but a lot of people don't see it. A lot of people don't see it, so it's a free service. You can do it from home. People are struggling every day, or people are struggling, just don't have anybody to talk to, but don't realize that, you have this service that is free to you that you could utilize to help you receive some healing, to help you to move forward.
Man, that's big. Even my company, I work for a bank. It's a national bank, and we have an amazing. We don't even have. It's not called HR. It's called Talent and Culture, and we have therapists. We have all kinds of resources, even for children and families, especially during COVID. And of course, with the injustices that have been happening and things like George Floyd and all that, there were so many resources that were just blasted over, over the network, over the company. And people were learning about these resources for the very first time and simply just didn't know. You can call someone, you can call and take advantage of these services. So
yeah,
I definitely think it's something we should champion more. There are so many different diverse men, so many different diverse people from backgrounds and walks of life. And, say you have a person who it wants to break into your field, and then maybe they were in education, maybe they were, say, an academic counselor or whatever it may be. What tips would you give them if they're transitioning into it new? And it's this climate. It's telehealth. It's not a lot of things in person. What would you kind of recommend to them?
Yeah, I would tell. So if they, and I know people will come in at different phases. There's some people who would come in and not have a degree at all. There's some people who would say, hey, I have an associate's, or I have a bachelor's, or I already have a master's, but what can I do? I would definitely encourage them to study the field of, and when I say study, I mean like research the field of social work, research the field of psychology, or research the field of counseling. Those are three major fields that can lead you down this path. A lot of people don't realize that if you have a bachelor's in any degree, it could be in, I don't know,
in horticulture, plants.
Yeah. You still, you just because your degree is in that field, it does not mean that you can't go and get a master's in social work to add on top of that, to become, to
the next level of study, right?
Yep. And so people think, oh, I would have had to have done that all the while, and no, that's not true. There's a lot of programs that are 2 years long. Most of them are two additional years, beyond the bachelor's level. But you really want to study. You want to research these fields and truly find out if this is for you. If you cannot how would I put this? I want to be careful when I say this, because this can come off very offensive to some people, depending on where you are, in your spiritual walk.
Right.
But if you are that person who just absolutely cannot treat someone because they are part of the LGBTQ community, if you are one of those people, due to your religion, you cannot look someone in the eye and say, I see that you're human and that you have depression or anxiety, despite what your sexual preference is.
Right.
and show the love of God,
Right.
and again, I'm not saying preach to them, but you can show the love of God still and connect to this person on a totally different wavelength,
Mm-hmm.
without Jesus, 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 and hitting them over the head with it, so
Become it. Don't talk. Just be it. Be him.
exactly, exactly. Be him. I love that. I work with any and everybody, any and everybody
Amazing.
who choose to come through my door. Take it, again, I don't push my religion off on people, but I take it as an opportunity to share the light of God with people, despite who you are, and what you do, what you believe in, who you're sleeping with, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So to anyone who is looking to get into this field, I just encourage them to, again, to research this field. Make sure that you can truly operate from a non-judgmental place, or otherwise you are going to hurt people. Okay, you're going to hurt people. You're going to exclude people, and again, that's hurting people as well.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Make sure that you can operate in this space. Make sure that you have a love for people. If you are one of those individuals that typically say, like, I don't get along with people, or
I don't like people like, man, humans make me sick.
Exactly.
It's just,
Yeah,
I get real short. And,
this is not the field for you. Stay
right,
away, please. You're
right,
just gonna make my job harder.
right.
You're going to make my job harder. And someone else who you were treating, they're gonna come see me and they complain about you.
I mean, for you, there's all kinds of skill sets, all kinds of experiences you shared that you gained over like the course of your years. How many years have you been doing what you're doing, by the way? Because I didn't even ask.
I started grad school in 2012, graduated in 2014. But even when I was in grad school, my internships, because you have two internships.
Okay.
Depending on which route you go, I had two internships. But I started right away doing therapy as part of my internship. So started doing therapy in 2012. Became what's called fully licensed, or I don't need a supervisor anymore.
Right.
I'm an independent clinical social worker, and that happened in that happened in 2016. And by that time, I was already teaching at the college level, and I had already started my private practice. So yeah.
And you mentioned you're a professor as well. What is that like for you?
Yeah. I teach just as of July 1st. I am now like full-time faculty member at Saginaw Valley State University. Prior to
congrats, that, man. That's
yeah,
awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Prior to that, I was doing what's called adjunct work, for 3 different universities. I teach a class here and there for 3 different universities. But now I've quit all 3 of those. Well, one of them is the university that I'm now, a full-time faculty member at. But that is a whole other world inside of social work that I just absolutely love. I love working with students. I love, again, sharing with people things that I've learned, over the years, and and just helping them to be good clinicians out in the field. I consider my job as almost like a gatekeeper to the profession. Because everyone who chooses social work ain't necessarily chose them, and I hate to say that.
Yeah, that's real. He said, "Hey, look, it's got to choose you. It's got to choose
you. It got to choose you. I'm sorry you weren't part of the chosen. So
you're not the chosen.
So
you say you're not Neo. You're not the chosen one. You signed up.
No. But some people have, they have. Maybe they've been impacted by a social worker along the way, and said, hey, I want to do that. But again, there's so many other things outside of the education piece. There's some people who can go through a program and scholastically get all A's, right? But can you be a relatable human being? Can you be a non-judgmental human being? Not have your own agendas and all that kind of stuff. So it's so much more to that. But teaching at the college level has been amazing. I love it. Social work, and again, so here's me being biased. Social work, out of all the other fields that I named, like it's really a broad field that you could work in. People hear social work, and back in the day they thought about like CPS and people taking
I
kids.
know I did. It was just like, hey, I studied social work. Oh, so you just showing up at people's houses and you just checking out, making sure they live in a livable environment for these
Right.
children. That's what I thought.
Yeah, no. I mean, social workers are in schools. They are in juvenile detentions. They're in the courts. They're in adult, prisons. They are in private practice, community mental health centers. They work for the state. They work for the federal government. Someone had even told me that Target hires social workers as part of their HR department. So social workers are, it's a very broad field, hospitals, all that kind of stuff, so
Sure, yeah.
the elderly, so you can do so many things, in the world of social work where you may not be able to do that with those other degrees that I talked about earlier. So, but then you get a psychologist on here or a counselor on here and they'll try to blow that out of the water with their degree. So I try not to argue about that.
I mean, I guess the last question I would even ask is like, what is the mark you want to leave? Just kind of through the means of what you do, what's the mark you want to leave on like the legacy as far as your family, the generation you serve, men, women, just kind of what's the specific mark you want to leave in what you do?
That's a great question. The mark that I want to leave, I would have to say with what I started out with, I can be a voice for people who feel like they don't have a voice. I want people, I don't need my name in lights. I don't need people to say, oh, Melvin did this and Melvin did that. No, I want people to walk out of my office and be able to say that I can do ... I believe in myself now. Again, I can. And you fill in the blank.
Right, right.
I can, I will, I must, all of that. All that
come on.
As long as people are leaving this place after having a conversation with me or someone on my team, or I refer them to another therapist who they can leave, and leave and say, I can, I will, I must, then I've done my job. Again, I'm about empowering people. I'm about getting behind people and helping them to see things in themselves that maybe they couldn't see before. It's important for me that people receive healing and know that there are outlets out there to receive that healing. I think we've all heard about, people just, people's gifts and talents and things being buried with them, I think we all need outlets and ways and people who are going to encourage us and help us to see that we all have something to give to.
Man, amazing.